Welcome back to Houch's Hot Rods. Let's try this again. Alright, this video is to show everybody what we had to do to get our rear end out of this 34 Ford. This is actually a 39 rear end with 411 gears, and of course we're going to change them over to 350 Ford. But this video, I looked at a lot of videos to try to figure out how to get this torque tube off. How to take the rear end out and everything. So I watched videos and I read up on some stuff on Ham and the Ford barn. So just showing a little bit of maybe it'll help somebody, give them some kind of deal if they're trying to take something out. It might help them somehow. So at the beginning of it was kind of easy up until we got to the torque tube. The torque tube was the hardest part about taking this thing out. To get everything out, we started with the spreader bar. You had two bolts here and two bolts there. Took the spreader bar out pretty easy. Then you had the fuel tank, which was here. There's one bolt here and there was two over there. And of course unhook your fuel line. We are going to put a new fuel tank in, so we'll change the lines when we get ready to do all that. These are your U-bolts that would hold your spring up in here. We waited and did them last. These are the shackle points that held them in. Then you had your shock mounting. This is your shock, and this is what held the shocks into the axle. It's just two halves bolted in, and they would bolt to the shackle point of your axle, back of your drum brake, right here. And we waited to do take the spring out last. So once we got that stuff unhooked, we went ahead and unhooked the brake line, which is right here. And of course, the brake line assembly is all connected to the torque tube assembly and axle assembly. And then you got your emergency cable. We unhooked it. And all that, like I said, was pretty easy. And then we got to the torque tube, decided to unhook the torque tube. Now the torque tube, all the videos I've seen, most everybody had a two-piece torque tube, which was mainly they was working on Model A's. This is a one-piece torque tube. Of course, this is a 39, and it has your speedometer, where your speedometer cable goes in. So that might be the reason why we have a one-piece, I would say. Being a one-piece, it seems like it was a little bit harder. And this torque tube was actually leaking from right around here. It sits up on there like that, and it was leaking around there. There's a gasket that goes up in here, and most of the gaskets you've seen are cork. Well, they make a rubber silicone gasket that goes up in there now, so that's what we'll try when we put it back together. Of course, this is your drive shaft that goes into the back of your transmission. So let's get to the point where we tried to unhook the torque tube. We had to take our floor piece out that covers the transmission right here. So this is your torque, where your torque tube would hook up. There's four bolts that hold it on, two on top, two on the bottom. This is a piece that goes into the drive shaft. And this is your mount holding your transmission. Now, some of the videos I've seen, they didn't have that mount in there. It was a separate way that their transmission mounted up. Now these bolts that stick out here, they have these castle nuts that go in them that I just drop down in there. Look like that. But anyway, it was hard. These have cotter pins in them. There was 4 cotter pins in each one. The ones on the bottom were harder to deal with. This is where the bolt is. So we had to take a jack and jack up the transmission a couple of inches so that we could get to it. We had to take this bolt out and this bolt out, which was holding the transmission in. So we jacked it up. That way we could get to the cotter pins to get them out and then take the nuts off. That was not very hard at all. So once we did all that, torque tube pretty much slid right out, and then we unhooked the spring and slid it right out. But before we did that, on the bottom side, let me get up in here. Okay, on the bottom side, this is part of your emergency brake lever, and it would actually hook up to this piece right here. This piece set like this right here. There was 4 bolts that held it on. Here, 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 and here. The rod that's here would hook up to here, and then this is our rod that we took off. It hooked up from here and went back to our torque tube assembly. So you got to take this off. I took this off just so it'd be easier to get everything. Took this off so that it'd be easier to get to everything. So it gives you a pretty good look at the torque tube, where it would go. It's where it would go into it. Oh. So that's the part of it that was baffling me, because I've never done one of these. So we're learning as we go, and as we'll try to read up on more as we go along, figure things out. The next part that we'll have to do is I have to buy a tool. It's a spreader tool to spread this spring apart, because it's under a load, in order to get the shackles off. So we'll have to wait for that tool, and then once we get the tool and be able to get the spring off, pull the shackles off, we'll be able to go ahead and finish taking brake assembly off, of course the torque tube off, everything else off, so that we can get to the axle and change the axle out, change the gears out in the axle. So that's that. We're learning as we go. Hopefully we don't screw it up too bad. So stay tuned, and we'll have more videos of different things on this 34 Ford. Thanks for stopping in.